Today on the Forgiven Nutritionist podcast, I will be talking about me, sort of an introduction. And today I'll be talking about depression and anxiety, as well as ADD, headaches, and hormones. I go into detail about some symptoms and things that I experienced, as well as quite a few things that I learned along the way. I am pretty transparent, and I want you to know that my healing journey took some time and a lot of work on my part. But I can tell you that it was so worth it because I no longer suffer from any symptoms. I hope that you check back in a couple of weeks for another bonus episode where I will share more details about myself and how I helped heal those that I love. But for now, here's a clip from today's show. I say you start today and you start now, and you just have to start. The body is a miraculous creation that can heal, both physically and mentally. But the kicker is that it requires work, and you are the only one that can do it. Hey everyone, just a quick break to show some gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. Pendulum has probiotics that will help heal your gut. Their lineup includes Akkermansia, Metabolic Daily, and one called Glucose Control, which is great for anyone wanting to improve their blood sugar levels, and you don't have to be a diabetic to take it. Any of these 3 probiotics include an important strain of probiotic called Akkermansia, which is only sold by Pendulum and is a key component of strengthening your gut lining and gut health. All of their products are clinically studied and third-party tested for quality. Check out all of their products at pendulumlife.com/discount/forgiven or click the link in the show notes. Use code FORGIVEN for 20% off your first month membership. For my first couple of episodes, I thought I would introduce myself so you can get to know me personally, who I am and how I came to be here, what I stand for, especially in this small sect of the healthcare industry, because anytime you know somebody or want to go to somebody for your health, don't you kind of want to know that they get it or that they actually understand what it's like to feel those issues that you feel and maybe know the symptoms that you experience or have? Okay, so I am Wendy Brinkmann. I am an Integrative Nutrition Health Coach, Health Coach Practitioner, and Holistic Nutritionist. And I guess I should kind of tell you a little bit about what that means and basically what I went to school for, so that maybe kind of helps you understand as well. In a nutshell, it's this. Nutrition, although it's extremely important, and I can't express how important it really is, it's way more than just what's on your plate. It's also your home life and your work life, your spiritual life, your financial health, as well as anything in your environment. And anything you put in and on your body matters a lot as well. However, you can eat the perfect diet, do all the right exercises, move your body often, have a loving spouse, live in a great home. But if you live in that home, for example, and it has radon or mold, you will stay sick. And again, I went to school for this, so I'm really glad that I did. It was very worth it. I do help my clients one-on-one in person and virtually as well address some of those things or all of those things. We figure things out together. And as for what brought me here, well, here goes. I can remember being depressed and having dramatic mood swings as early as 9 or 10 at least. Looking back at much of my childhood, I do have a few memories, and I would say it was pretty obvious that something was going on health-wise, internally, but externally as well. Back then, nobody knew what we know today. I was definitely a loner, and I could be withdrawn. I was very shy, and like I said, there were a lot of clear health issues to me looking back, but I definitely think I clearly had ADD. I struggled in school a lot, even at an early age. And seriously, like I would have very poor and even failing grades in elementary school. This is a huge red flag. And my parents were kind of concerned, so they had me tested several times over the years to find out if I had any learning disabilities. But my parents were always told that I just needed to pay attention and apply myself more, and that I had no learning disabilities. I really didn't have any friends. And when I was growing up, any friends that I did get, they definitely didn't last long. My mood swings were always big and constant over the years. And so much so that my mom always said I should have been an actress because I was very dramatic. My mood swings only progressed as I got older. And my mom used to tell people every 2 hours I had to eat, even from a very young age, well into my adulthood. And again, my mom told people this all the time, and no one ever questioned it, ever. This alone to me is another huge red flag, as it definitely sounds like I had blood sugar imbalance, which means I was getting hangry, and the drops in my blood sugar were causing those mood swings and even ADD. Trust me, we didn't eat a lot of candy growing up, but there was a lot of cereal and bread and crackers and snacking in general. Yes, as we got older, the snack foods got slightly more processed and a lot more name brand processed snacks came in the home. But when I got into high school, and during my high school years, the depression really grew. Internally mostly, but it definitely still showed up in everything. Again, I struggled to make friends, and the ones I did have, I didn't keep them. My grades only kept getting worse as I got older, and now my emotions and mood swings were ridiculously high. I can remember being a freshman, sitting in my room listening to my boombox, and while looking out the window and crying, and I hated life. And by the time my senior year rolled around, I had one of my classes that I was in was speech class. And I only tell you that because I literally only said like 500 words during that whole year that I was in school. So that tells you how much I hated life and hated school back then. A few months after graduating high school, literally by the grace of God, because my grades were so horrible, I had turned 18. And not long after I turned 18, I experienced a major trauma. And that trauma had lasting effects that I had no idea. The whole situation really wasn't handled well, even after after people kind of knew and were trying to help me. But to make things worse, the damage from the trauma grew both physically and mentally. Okay, so originally I was depressed and had anxiety for at least 10 years at this point. Never once did anyone try to figure out why or what was causing these mood swings and poor grades. But now I also have a trauma. So couple those two together and my health declined. And by the summer of 94, I kind of call that my first real big depression. I mean, I didn't like fast food. I didn't like home cooked food. I didn't like Kool-Aid. I didn't like soda. I didn't like anything. It was literally like my world was kind of bleached out and my world was without color. I wasn't happy and I was barely existing. I tried to force myself to be with others or to go out, but it was awful. And again, I hated life. I did tell some people, including my parents, that it's almost like I'm depressed. But the reaction that I received was less than empathetic or supportive. And I guess I get it because it's out of their wheelhouse. So nobody really, if you don't understand something, how can you know how to help somebody? And so I basically just put on a happy face and I faked it. I faked my way through it again, just like I had done all the previous years before. And I can promise you that looking back, I was not happy. Nothing ever lit me up or brought me real joy. And I kind of want you to put a pin in that for right now because I'm going to mention something later about depression like this. So within 6 months after that depression, I was married and I had my first child 9 months later. And I can say that when my first daughter was born, that was the first time in my life that I think my hormones were actually working at all levels, or at least closer to how they should have been all along. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was not healthy, didn't eat healthy, I didn't do anything healthy. However, as far as feeling and feeling something, that's when I think I finally could feel again. My feelings kind of returned. It didn't happen overnight. It took like a month or so after I had my baby, but I finally had feelings again and I probably felt normal, and I had never felt normal normal in probably over 13 years. And it was great until I didn't feel like that again. And by the time my daughter was 2.5, I was almost in a full depression again. And the thing with depression is that you find yourself making poor choices because you're constantly searching for something. It makes you a person that you normally are not. It can make you a liar. It can make you a cheater, a thief, a slanderer. It can make you rude and unkind, sneaky, and downright evil sometimes. I've seen it do these things to me, and some of these things to me, and I've seen it. Some of these things happen to others as well, and even some clients that I have. They can all find some or several of those things that it turns them into. The saddest part at the time, when my daughter was about 2.5, is that I knew she was the one that was suffering from me being depressed. She missed out on what I could have been. And honestly, unfortunately, I didn't care at the time. And that to me was sad. Not because I didn't care, but because I literally couldn't care. I couldn't feel sometimes. And I recognized it. I recognized it at the time. And I knew it was happening. But again, I couldn't feel. So I did go to therapy. This was actually when I really started going. And I started going to a therapist also, but my primary care doctor. They did give me medication, which I took. But when I got pregnant the second time, I stopped taking them because I didn't want my baby to get impacted by any medication that I was taking. So my husband's job at the time had moved us around a lot, and first in the same state, and then we moved out of state. And that's where I landed in Cincinnati, Ohio. And again, that was the second time I could finally feel something. I felt good for a little while. But again, it only lasted a little while, and then I didn't. But it's when I got to Cincinnati, that's when I went back on the medication, and basically because I thought I had to. I thought that the only way I could ever feel again or feel better or do better was if I took the medication. And that's basically because that's what the doctors all suggested to me, is that I take medication. So I started going to therapy again, and my doctor kept me coming back every 3 months to see how I was doing on those meds. But they didn't really work. I still had mood swings that were crazy. And by now, my hormones were clearly out of whack. And I can say this looking back at all the symptoms that I had with my period and just every month. It was awful. And seriously, my female hormone issues could be a whole podcast in itself. I had more DNCs and LEAP procedures than I care to remember. And this couples up with something that I haven't mentioned yet is growing up, I always struggled with headaches, which probably had a lot to do with my hormones as well. My doctors always told my mom that, I would grow out of it. Much like my knee pain, I was tall, so I would grow out of it. But I never grew out of it. I literally, for almost 40 years of my life, suffered with multiple headaches a month. And when I say multiple, I mean probably out of, let's say, 30 days, at least 20 of them were experiencing a headache and a migraine of some sorts, or a cluster headache, which if you've ever experienced them, they're awful. So again, my hormones were clearly out of whack after my second child for several years. And in 2005, about 11 years after my first real big depression, I experienced another big depression, and I let my negative emotions get the best of me. I did end up in the hospital, and I didn't, I just wanted to feel again, and I wanted to feel good and not that turmoil that's kind of like an undercurrent that happens inside of you when you experience depression. And when you do this, when you feel like you want to feel again, it's a very weird feeling because again, you're always searching for something, and so that's how you end up becoming a person that you're not normally. Because again, you're searching for or striving for feeling and being just like everybody else. So when I ended up in the hospital, it was one of the best and worst things that ever happened to me. But from that moment that I arrived, I realized that I was blessed, and I was blessed beyond belief. And I literally talked about God the whole time that I was there. I talked about other patients to God. I talked about God to all the doctors and nurses. And see, a few things were kind of going on here. That I firmly believe that God wanted me to be in this place at this time, at this hospital, because eventually it would lead me here, talking to you right now and talking to my clients. I see that the body is beautifully and wonderfully made by Him, and that I am proud that I got to learn just some of the ways that it works and some of the ways that it needs to function and function well. The second thing that is that I never addressed the trauma, which that alone is huge. So if you have ever experienced any kind of trauma, please definitely seek help to address it, because not that you want to rehash it or constantly relive it, but you need to learn the new triggers and how to move on. And that the third thing that I really kind of learned is that nobody is still addressing why I'm depressed or anxious. Nobody's wondering why my body is causing these depression symptoms. Nobody. No doctors or therapists, no nurses, nobody ever had ever once asked me about my diet or what I ate, what I drank, how I slept, where I lived, or wanted to talk about any of the other symptoms that I had, like my female issues. I went to one doctor for one thing, and we talked about that one thing. And then I went to another doctor to talk about that one thing, and we talked about that one thing. They always just wanted to do either a procedure or give me medication. I will say that there is one doctor that was in Ohio, and he did, over time, he not only talked to me about God, which is huge, but he also finally did some vitamin B testing on me and found out that I was extremely low in vitamin B12. So he did do that with me as well. And he also recommended the fast metabolism diet, which has a lot of whole foods in it, which is extremely important. So remember the first pin that I told you I would come back to? And remember, that was my first real big depression, where I was bleached out and I had no feeling or joy or no color in my life, and that depression. Well, this type of depression can be called anhedonic depression. And I literally only just learned about it, and I'm 50. Anhedonic depression is the lack of pleasure, drive, and joy. It's usually caused by a lack of dopamine, but nobody ever once mentioned that to me or said, hey, can we get that dopamine up and get you feeling better? Nobody ever wanted, in all the years that I saw anybody mentioned it, or nor did they ever mention the anhedonic depression. I had to learn this for myself from my schooling and talking with the doctors that were my teachers. And remember when I told you about the focus trouble that I always had in school, the failing grades, the ADD? Honestly, I first got told when I was about 23 that I probably had ADD. And it's mainly because I casually mentioned it to a doctor and I was going through some things. And he's the one that said, oh, it sounds like you have ADD. But he too never wanted to figure out why or how we could address it. He just told me that it sounds like I had ADD. Well, dopamine is the focus and reward neurotransmitter. Focus and reward neurotransmitter. There's dopamine again. Another dopamine reference. Solution. It sounds like a solution that was never mentioned, suggested, or tested by anyone. Not ever in my 35 plus years of suffering with some type of depression symptoms. Honestly, that solution seems pretty simple to me now, 35 years later. Dopamine. And you need B6, vitamin B6, to make dopamine, serotonin, and GABA, which are neurotransmitters. So if someone would have maybe addressed my possible B6 issue, I would have gotten the proper amount of dopamine made in my body. Many, if not all of my symptoms could have been eliminated. Of course, nobody ever did that. So we don't know for sure if that's what it was. We don't know for sure if that's what caused it. And we'll never know for sure because we can't go back and test. But it sounds like that could have been the right course of action for me. I can also tell you from my current habits that because I'm no longer on gluten, that is another huge one as well. As soon as if I just decide to have one bite of gluten or something with gluten in it, which I never have, but if I do, I can tell internally that in a matter of days, I can experience a lot of mood swings. And gluten can stay in your body for like 3 months just by the one cheat that you have. So think about that. However, I think that had I not experienced all the crap that I did, I wouldn't be here today. All the crap I went through and experience that led me here. I didn't even touch on yet diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis. That's going to be in the next episode. But I took the nutrition school classes because I wanted to learn how the body works and what it needs and what happens if it doesn't get what it needs. And I know that from personal experience as well as my schooling. And now I can help others navigate and figure out why they're going through what they're going through. I mean, I get it. I know firsthand what depression and anxiety is like. I know firsthand what awful mood swings are like. And I know what it's like to have raging hormones and have seen a gynecologist for chronic issues, as well as headaches. I know what it's like to experience these horrible headaches. But I can say that I also know what it's like to have your body be healed by doing certain things and finding the things that work for you. Because everyone is going to be different and everyone's symptoms are going to be different and everyone's triggers are going to be different. So at the end of every episode, I try to get my guests to tell what their don't miss this moment is. And that don't miss this moment is what I really want you, the listeners, to take away from that episode. So today, my big don't miss this moment for you is take back the control. Find someone who is willing to help you to get to the root cause of whatever your issue is. It doesn't matter if it's diabetes, depression, rheumatoid arthritis, IBS, whatever. I say you start today and you start now, and you just have to start. The body is a miraculous creation that can heal both physically and mentally. But the kicker is that it requires work, and you are the only one that can do it. Please know, I'll keep you in my prayers. If you're looking for a trustworthy place to choose all of your supplements, FullScript has 285 different brands to choose from. They did the work for you to check quality standards for all the supplements they carry. This standard is important because they help to ensure a product is safe, effective, and accurately labeled. FullScript uses third-party companies to provide unbiased assurance that certain quality criteria are met when they add a company or product to their inventory. When you set up an account with FullScript, use my link and you'll always get 15% off your supplements. Click the link in the show notes. If you want to continue learning and hearing all things nutrition for your mind, body, and spirit, click like, subscribe, or favorite me on whatever podcast platform you use. Or you can find me at ForgivenNutritionist.com. This podcast was designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to achieve your health and wellness goals with your current healthcare provider. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any illness or medical condition or take the place of any treatments from your current healthcare providers.